The rain poured heavily, drumming against the rooftop as Emily sat by the window, watching the storm rage outside. She loved nights like this, when the world outside felt just as chaotic as the storm inside her mind. Her fingers traced the rim of her coffee mug, the warmth grounding her as memories resurfaced. It had been a year since she last saw Daniel. A year since their final conversation, where words had cut deeper than silence ever could. He had walked away that night, disappearing into the city's neon glow, leaving behind nothing but an echo of what they once had. Emily closed her eyes, exhaling softly. She told herself she had moved on, that she no longer waited for his name to light up her phone screen. Yet, as the storm raged outside, she couldn't help but wonder, was he thinking about her too? A sudden knock at the door pulled her out of her thoughts. Her heart pounded. It was late, too late for visitors. She hesitated before standing up, the wooden floor creaking under her weight. As she approached the door, another knock followed, this time softer. She took a deep breath and turned the knob. There he was, soaked from the rain, his dark hair dripping, his eyes searching hers for an answer neither of them had. "I was just passing by," Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily knew it was a lie, but she didn't care. She stepped aside, letting him in. Maybe some storms weren't meant to be weathered alone. The door clicked shut behind Daniel, the sound barely audible over the rain pounding against the windows. Emily stood still, her fingers tightening around her coffee mug, uncertain of what to say. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, the kind that lingered long after a goodbye. Daniel's clothes clung to his frame, drenched from the storm outside. He ran a hand through his wet hair, exhaling slowly as he looked around the apartment. Nothing had changed. The same books stacked on the coffee table, the same dim lighting, the same scent of vanilla and cinnamon she always loved. "You shouldn't be here," Emily finally said, her voice softer than she intended. "I know." He shoved his hands into his pockets, shifting awkwardly. "I wasn't planning to stop by. He hesitated, searching for the right words. "I kept walking, and somehow I ended up here." Emily studied him, the way his eyes flickered with hesitation, regret. She wanted to believe he hadn't come by accident, that maybe, just maybe, he had been thinking about her as much as she had about him. She sighed, setting her coffee down on the table. "You're soaked. Let me get you a towel." Daniel nodded, watching as she disappeared down the hallway. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Being here again, standing in the warmth of her home, felt both familiar and foreign. He had convinced himself he had moved on, but now, standing in the place where everything had started, he wasn't so sure. Emily returned with a towel, handing it to him without meeting his gaze. He took it, drying his face and hair, before speaking again. "I shouldn't have left that night," he admitted, his voice raw. "I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought you'd be better off without me." Emily scoffed, crossing her arms. "And now," Daniel swallowed hard, "now I know I was wrong." She shook her head, letting out a small, bitter laugh. "You don't get to do this, Daniel. You don't get to walk away and then come back when it's convenient for you." "I know," he whispered, "but I had to see you." Silence stretched between them, heavy and unresolved. Emily turned away, staring at the rain streaking down the window. Her heart ached with the weight of everything left unsaid. "You should go," she murmured, though a part of her wished he wouldn't. Daniel took a step closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Do you really want me to?" She hesitated. Maybe some wounds never truly heal. Maybe some goodbyes aren't meant to last forever. She turned back to him, her eyes searching his. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure what the answer was. The rain outside softened into a steady drizzle, as if the storm, like them, was beginning to tire. Emily's fingers trembled slightly as she gripped the edge of the table. She wanted to tell him to leave, to walk away before old wounds reopened, but she couldn't bring herself to say the words. Daniel took another step forward, hesitant but determined. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Emily," he said. He ran a hand through his damp hair. "I just need you to know that leaving you was the worst mistake of my life." Emily's breath hitched. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that his words weren't just the product of a lonely night and an unexpected storm. But the past year had taught her to guard her heart, to be wary of second chances wrapped in regret. "You think showing up here changes anything?" she asked, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. "That one apology can erase everything?" "No," Daniel admitted. "But I had to try." Silence. The kind that stretches between two people who were once everything to each other. The kind that holds 1,000 unspoken emotions. Emily turned back to the window, her reflection staring back at her, just as conflicted as she felt. "I spent so many nights wondering why you left," she whispered. "And now you're here expecting me to what? Pretend like it never happened." Daniel exhaled sharply. "I don't expect anything. He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I missed you, Em. More than I can explain." Her heart clenched at the way he said her name, soft and familiar, like a melody she had tried to forget. She could feel his presence behind her, the warmth of him despite the cold rain clinging to his clothes. A part of her wanted to turn around, to close the distance between them, to let herself believe in the possibility of a new beginning. But another part of her, the part that had spent countless nights picking up the pieces, was terrified. "You should go," she said again, but this time her voice lacked conviction. Daniel didn't move. "Tell me to leave and I will," he said. "But if there's even the smallest part of you that still cares, just say the word, and I'll stay." Emily squeezed her eyes shut, her pulse pounding in her ears. She wanted to be strong, to protect herself. But maybe, just maybe, some people were worth the risk. Slowly she turned around, and for the first time in a long time she let herself hope.